Dawn at Stonehenge. It's midsummer, when the days are at their longest, when the dawn will cast its rays into the heart of the stone circle. At this time of year, the sun rises directly behind the famous heel stone standing outside the circle. But today, an artificial sun shines down. A scientific experiment using a massive 18-kilowatt spotlight to illuminate a controversial theory. Dr. Terence Meaden is a physicist. He thinks he can demonstrate why Stonehenge was built. Dr. Meaden's theory is that this was the site of a symbolic sexual act. Two ancient deities, a marriage of the gods.
The marriage of the gods is a cosmic consummation between two fertility deities, seen here as the sun god and the earth goddess. What we're seeing at Stonehenge is the sun shining past the heelstone straight into the womb of Stonehenge. Then the sun moves to a position where it is concealed behind the heelstone. We then have the phenomenon happening. The shadow of the heelstone penetrates the monument and gives a consummation effect. A fertility ceremony happening in front of the spectators who would have been watching all this. This experiment's gone so well, we're delighted. All the calculations are worked out beautifully. We spent some time in advance working out just where the artificial sun should be placed. Everything has come out exactly as expected.
Britain was a warmer and sunnier place in Stone Age times. People who gathered here around the time of the summer solstice had a good chance of seeing a clear sunrise. Dr. Meaden's personal theory is that the stones were positioned to ensure that a phallic shadow would penetrate the inner sanctum of Stonehenge. The tip of the shadow fell across the monument's most sacred stone, the one he calls the Goddess Stone. This female figure, seated on her throne of leopards, was already 4,000 years old when Stonehenge was built. She was made in Turkey, which was once the cradle of Western civilization. Did the Stonehenge builders dedicate their work to someone like her, a goddess of motherhood, of fertility, of the earth? The search for hard evidence of goddess worship in Britain has become Terence Meaden's lifelong obsession. But it's a highly controversial idea, which leaves most archaeologists sceptical.
I don't think there's any evidence for the cult of the goddess in Britain, which doesn't mean there couldn't have been something of this sort. But if so, there are no images of her which we can accept as authentic. That's the big problem.
The Neolithic, or New Stone Age, began in Britain around 6,000 years ago. Neolithic people were the first monumental builders, beginning with huge communal tombs for their dead, like the West Kennet Long Barrow, 20 miles from Stonehenge. The New Stone Age people were the first in Britain for whom the fertility and cultivation of the earth became a matter of life and death.
Neolithic people were the first farmers in Britain, and they were obsessed with the fertility of the land and with reproduction. And it's in this period that the idea of Mother Earth, I think, first comes to the fore. I think in the Neolithic period the Earth was increasingly being seen as female, but that was because it was being seen increasingly as something that would produce, that would yield, that you could drive a plough into.
As farmers, the Neolithic people were developing a new concern with the seasons of life: sowing, harvesting, storing. The long barrows they built to house their dead tell the same cyclical story, a growing preoccupation with death and rebirth. For Terence Meaden, the link to the earth goddess is clear. Here, at the chambered tomb of Hetty Pegler's Tump, northwest of Stonehenge, he thinks our ancestors saw the body of the Earth Mother, burying their dead in a tomb which was also a womb.
What do you think about the meaning of the word tump?
Well, I guess people in the 17th century saw it as a great big pregnant belly in the landscape.
Archaeologist Tim Taylor disagrees with Dr. Meaden on many details, but he does support the idea that these tombs were built to resemble wombs.
All over Britain, mounds just like this one are constructed, and they're very womb-like. They have a passage that's like a vagina, and they have lobes into which the dead are put, and they are humped up in the landscape. 3 of the 5 chambers are still open.
The most important cell must be the one in which I'm sitting right here, because this is the end cell of the gallery. Looking ahead, we have the vulva entrance, the vagina gallery, and the cell straight at the end, this vast one here, is the womb cell into which I would guess the most recently dead body would have been placed.
This was a family burial plot. Deep inside the chambers, many of the skeletons were incomplete, for the living used the bones of the dead in rituals, bringing them in and out of the tomb at times of ceremonial importance. For Tim Taylor, they're enacting a symbolic rebirth from the tomb and the womb.
I think that symbolism of a womb and a vagina is broadly inescapable, but there's an architectural tradition here as well. They're putting them up over several hundred years with these side chambers. When the dead are brought in here and then moved around, they are being put in to Mother Earth, if you like, and that idea is emerging in the Neolithic period. Whether it's related to some grand mother goddess, though, I have my doubts.
Oh, that's quite another matter. The Earth Mother, though, was something which seemed to be quasi-universal throughout the entire Neolithic world.
This type of monument ties in perfectly with a belief system that women were just there for reproduction. It's showing a womb-shaped monument in the earth, can receive dead bodies and will hold the ancestors within the earth from which they can be reborn. And it's rather like scattering seed onto a harrowed field which will produce crops in the new year. They're scattering bones into this vulva here in order to reproduce the ancestors.
Terence Meaden's theory is based on his own individual interpretation of the shape and design of Stonehenge.
Stonehenge was built as a temple to the Earth Goddess. All these stones represent, in one way or another, the organs of generation of the Earth Goddess. The first trilithon arch is wider than all the others. This is the vulva of the monument. Inside, we reach the first pair of stones, which are regardable as the cervix stones. And inside this, we have the uterus. There is fertility symbolism here everywhere. You see it in every one of these trilithon settings with their narrow slits. At the heart of the monument, at the focus, we have the goddess stone. When this was standing upright, it stood here, and it was 4 meters high.
What Dr. Meaden calls the goddess stone is more commonly known as the altar stone. Once it stood upright at the very center of the monument. It's the only example here of micaceous sandstone, an unusual rock which glitters in the sunshine. It fell into ruin many centuries ago, but for Dr. Meaden, it is the symbol of Mother Earth. In the marriage of the gods, this was the bride. For professional archaeologists, there remains a problem with Meaden's theory, a hole in the evidence. For if our ancestors were inspired by a goddess cult, they left no clear image of her in Britain. Which is why it is so intriguing that goddess-like images are found in the oldest Neolithic cultures in the world. "10,000 years ago, in the eastern Mediterranean, at the junction of Asia and Europe, the earliest Neolithic age began with a dramatic shift from hunter-gathering to farming. This successful new way of life spread westwards through Turkey and Europe, taking around 4,000 years to reach Britain. But what happened to the goddess along the way? 2,000 miles east of Stonehenge, the Anatolian Plain, which means land of mothers. These Turkish farmers are descended from Neolithic ancestors who left behind an artistic treasure of female figurines, of mothers, queens, or goddesses. Professor Ian Hodder of Cambridge University is director of a major excavation in Turkey. What he's finding here is transforming our understanding of Neolithic beliefs. Below this archaeological survey balloon lies the physical and artistic legacy of a people who lived 9,000 years ago.
It really is extraordinary.
Long before Stonehenge, up to 10,000 people lived here, crowded together in a busy city called Çatalhöyük.
The site itself would have looked like a great sea, an enormous sea of houses all huddled together with no streets between them, people moving around on the roofs. Çatalhöyük is really important because it's the earliest site for a whole range of things. But by far the most important thing is the art, which tells us about symbols such as the goddess and a whole range of other ideas that people had about the natural world at that time.
Neolithic people had no written language, so the closest we can get to a record of their beliefs is through the works of art discovered in their houses.
One of the great things about Çatalhöyük is the remarkable preservation, so that you can really reconstruct what it was like to walk through these houses. I'm walking through here into the main room, and this would have been a very dark and smoky house. And as people came in out of the bright sunlight into this main room, they would have moved and gradually seen these extraordinary paintings and sculptures on the walls emerging out of the darkness.
Among the art revealed by the excavation are dazzling images of women in positions of great power. What may be a woman giving birth to bulls? The bull is an accepted symbol of fertility and virility. And the queenly form of the woman seated on a throne of leopards.
This has suggested to many people that not only were women important in daily life, but that they had some sort of religious significance. And out of all this symbolism, one can perhaps talk about a very powerful or goddess-type figure. I'm going into this side room, which has a whole series of storage bins. We think these were used for storage of grain and so on, and it's in a bin like this that the famous Mother Goddess figure was found, very powerful figure. One idea is that what we're seeing here is the fertility of the woman linked to the fertility of grain. Perhaps the fertility of the woman helps the crops to grow, that sort of idea.
The power of the female images found at Çatalhöyük draws women's groups here from all over the world. Ceylan Orhun is a prominent Turkish feminist who organises international visits. She believes Çatalhöyük offers vivid meanings to modern women.
The role of the Mother Goddess in Çatalhöyük was that she was the spiritual leader. Çatalhöyük has been a matriarchal society. Women were at the center of the society, and the women of today can learn from that and embrace their power without the cliches of the patriarchal preaching today. Women come to Çatalhöyük from all over the world, all sorts of women, from academics to housewives to retired women to grandmothers. And it is a powerful feeling, really, when you get here with different kind of women from all sorts of places and all sorts of statuses in life.
The image of a powerful mother figure, or goddess, resonates across 9,000 years of history in the Eastern Mediterranean. But could belief in her have survived the long journey to Britain and Stonehenge?
If we follow the Neolithic through into Europe, of course we know that ideas about farming spread, so it's not unlikely that ideas about symbolism also spread, their belief system. So that by the time we get to places like Stonehenge, although these are different societies, the belief system in which women were central probably continued.
And if there was a great goddess of fertility in Britain, was Stonehenge built to link her to the skies? Amid all the controversies which surround Stonehenge, there is one idea which meets universal approval among archaeologists. All agree the stones were carefully arranged to stand in alignment with the rising and setting of the sun. Beyond that, the disagreements multiply. Aubrey Burl, Britain's foremost expert on stone circles, has made a careful study of the geometry of alignments at Stonehenge. He dismisses theories of Stonehenge as a complex astronomical device.
There are just two very simple sight lines here. One, as I look here towards the heel stone, the stone that stands outside Stonehenge, just to the left of it is where the sun would rise at midsummer. Just turning round and aligning to the southwest, that is in line with the midwinter sunset.
Twin alignments, clearly marking the cycle of the seasons and the Earth's fertility. Midsummer sunrise, celebrating the peak of the growing period. Diametrically opposite, midwinter sunset, marking the darkest moment before life may begin to return. Which alignment was most important to the builders of Stonehenge? Terence Meaden's theory of the marriage of the gods makes him choose the warmth and hope of midsummer sunrise.
The key alignment is the midsummer sunrise alignment because this celebrates life and fertility.
Aubrey Burl chooses the opposite because the stones are tallest in the direction of the midwinter sunset.
The midwinter sunset alignment is even more important than the midsummer sunrise alignment, which had gone before it.
It's the death of the year. And I can imagine here in the centre of Stonehenge, in the darkness with torches burning away and light flickering on these stones, people must have wanted desperately to make the world turn back into warmth when things would grow.
Which is true? Archaeologist John Barrett walks the route our ancestors took to Stonehenge. He's convinced that the architecture of the entire monument is aligned towards the dawn and the midsummer sunrise.
The procession approaches the monument. It enters the monument through the outer circle of stones and into this inner area of trilithons. It's the end of the journey. You can go no further. But at that point of culmination, something quite remarkable happens. Those who gather here within the centre can turn round, and on midsummer morning, the sun itself rises along that same axis. And that ceremony may appear essential to the rebuilding of the next year, may appear essential to the reproduction of life itself, to fertility, to the continuation of the community and its own well-being.
It's more than 5,000 years since mankind began to study the sun and the planets. As director of the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles, astronomer Ed Krupp sees strong connections between archaeology and the cosmos. And he believes there are parallels in Native American cultures which can shed light on the British Neolithic.
The fundamental concerns of people's lives are reflected in their belief system. And by looking at one culture, we can, by analogy, at least see some of the things that would have been in the minds of others. And these concepts of earth and sky and fertility provide one of the windows for making that connection.
The red rocks of Arizona rise towards the sky 7,500 miles west of Stonehenge. But though the Stonehenge people are long gone, the American Indians who have survived into the modern world retain intriguing elements of a similar belief system. Many of the old tribes are virtually extinct, their beliefs lost or vanishing. But the Navajo people of Arizona are still in touch with their ancient gods.
Neolithic Britain and the North American Indian peoples are both Stone Age cultures. The Navajo are traditional people, and for traditional peoples, the world is still sacred. And so the Navajo offer a parallel to what was in the minds of the people that built monuments such as we find in prehistoric Europe.
In the Navajo, everything is explained in terms of male and female. And the male and female is not restricted to gender or sex. There are principles, male principle and female principle.
At the Navajo Community College at Saili, Arizona, students learn the principles of an ancient religion built around the Earth Mother and the Sky Father.
First man was created way deep within the earth.
Their teacher is Harry Walters, a Navajo and an anthropologist.
And so he was created in the form of the night sky and the dawn. We see him here pictured as a man, and that he had a human form. First woman also came into being. First woman is said to represent the earth. Why is the sky male and the earth female? Because at the fertility, the sky was attracted to the earth. And so there was thunder, and this thunder was the sky's mating call. The sky provided the seed in the form of rain, and it entered the female, and new life came from the female. And so this is the natural order.
Another marriage of the gods, male and female, night and day, life, death, summer, winter. Throughout the world, our ancestors found meaning in opposites.
To our ancestors, the universe had to behave like everything behaves. And the thing that was most important to them was their own behavior. Well, they knew they were male and female, and that's what perpetuated their lives and their culture and their civilization.
It's easy to see how this landscape could have inspired the ancestors of today's Navajo to conjure a living union between the sky and the earth.
Everything within the sky and the earth have human characteristics. They are capable of reasoning. They are capable of speech. They have feelings, they have emotions. And so the mountains are like that.
Thousands of years on, the Navajo beliefs offer clues as to how the ancient Britons may have seen their world. The sacred unity of sky and earth, the meaning which lies in every living thing, the soul of the stones.
Mountains, rivers, valleys, plateau, all of them would have had a significance which was a sacred significance. It addressed, if you like, the day-to-day experiences of everyday life, the experiences of the rivers, the hills, the pasture land. Everything now made sense because you knew how it all fitted together.
In America, as in Britain, sexual symbolism seems to have stood out in the Neolithic landscape. A hidden language of fertility, which fascinates astronomer Ed Kropp. He's on the trail of a secret cave in the California desert. His guide is 8-year-old Andy Green, one of the last of the Kawaiisu Indians. This cave is so sacred to the Kawaiisu that its name and location are kept secret.
A deer, I guess. What are you going to be?
Andy Green is among the last of his Southern California mountain tribe to possess the old knowledge handed down over countless generations.
When I come here, I always feel that my ancestors came here, you know. The people used to come here and pray. That's what is important about. My grandmother used to come here.
The physical rock formation here offers the Kawaiisu a powerful sexual symbolism.
I don't think there's any accident that this place was singled out as a kind of a place of power, that it was recognized as a place of power. I approached this place with a kind of a particular scientific intention, and I discover that the natural geology transforms me into a gynecologist. The natural rock formations clearly resemble female genitalia. Well, look at it. I mean, it's pretty obvious what we're seeing. It's the birthplace of the world.
Mother Earth. Inside this cave, according to the Kawaiisu creation myth, Andy Green's world was born.
And of course, this story is really a telling of the beginning of the world, the beginning of how things now are.
In an ancient traditional gesture, Andy Green throws an offering of berries into the cave of the Earth Mother.
There's some themes that almost seem to run around the entire world. Caves are portals into the body of Mother Earth. It's the place from which the animals emerge each spring after hibernation. It's the place where they go to burrow. And so you get this seasonal story of cyclical renewal that is like the story of all life.
The earth and the sky. Their partnership the guarantee of fertility, a fundamental human belief found in Neolithic cultures across continents and millennia. Britain's largest stone circle, Avebury, stands 20 miles north of Stonehenge. It's about the same age and may be full of fertility symbolism.
So all these stones, Terry, have a sexuality for you?
Every one of them, and largely it derives from the fact that they were specially selected, brought here, they had a meaning for the people at the time, and we are reading back the meaning they put into them.
Right.
Dr. Terence Meaden's highly individual theories are too extreme for most experts on the Neolithic, but archaeologist Mike Pitts believes in keeping an open mind.
So Terry, they're bringing, according to your theory, hundreds of these stones down off the hills, male and female. This is pretty heavy sex. I mean, what's in the minds of the people? Why are they doing this?
Dr. Meaden believes Neolithic Britons found sexual significance in each stone, that the tall ones are male, the broad ones female.
It's an idea that's actually embedded in academic archaeology. There is an old idea that was actually created by a conventional and excellent archaeologist in the 1960s, that the two different shapes of stone are representing male and female. Terry, you've brought me to these two stones in the avenue that you wanted to show me. What are you going to tell me?
Well, I want to emphasise that the story of Avebury is the story of people and their religion, and a fertility religion,
with that, yeah.
and a fertility religion at that.
Right.
And this is why the people, in my opinion, put sexuality into the stones, and why, if we're clever enough now, we can read the sexuality back out.
Okay, sounds fun. Show me.
Here we have a stone which is far taller than it is wide, and it is a classic male stone. Those which are broader than they are high are likely to be female.
Right. There's a sexuality in the stone.
Initially, one makes the academic statement, but when you come to live with the stones, and I'm visiting them so much, when you come to really know them very well, yes, you feel the same power. And this was put into them by the people who made them. Indeed.
It's completely theoretical. If you actually statistically analyse the stones, there are not two types. We're picking out extremes. And maybe they are female, maybe they're male, maybe there's something else, maybe one's red and one's white, maybe one's dark, night, light, death. There are all sorts of oppositions other than male and female. Do you feel a female sexuality coming out?
Yes, I do feel such a thing coming back. And then it's all the more powerful by being set opposite this one.
Right.
Now, that's a very masculine stone.
Dr. Meaden is not the first enthusiast to find his own meanings in Britain's mysterious stone circles. It's been said that every age gets the Stonehenge it desires or deserves. The 17th century architect Inigo Jones saw a classical temple. To the Victorians, it was a sacrificial altar of the druids. In the hippy 1960s, an astronomical calendar, or a landing strip for alien visitations. At the approach of the 21st century, the needs and desires of a new generation are met by the stones. Today, on the summer solstice, at the most sacred time of the Neolithic year, people are gathering at Avebury. It's June the 21st, and among the New Age travellers, druids and tourists can be found the modern-day followers of the Earth Goddess. A new belief celebrating nature, fertility and womanhood.
I was probably about 20 miles away, and I suddenly felt this switch of energy within my own system. And then the song, "We Belong to the Goddess, we come from the Goddess," started to go right through my system, just like a mantra.
modern world wants to have a single earth goddess in the Neolithic quite badly because of a need for female spirituality as part of a general feminist movement towards self-expression for women.
For a small but growing number of women, Midsummer's Day at Avebury offers a cultural and sexual connection with the past.
If we look at Avebury, the whole sense of the place is that it is very feminine. It is deeply curvaceous, just as a woman's body should be. Women find this place very powerful. It allows them to reflect aspects of themselves very strongly. The sense of embracing, of nurturing, which are, for many, seen as the essential powers of womanhood.
The shape of the stones is so female. It creates, there's hips and there's thighs and there's ovaries and stretch marks.
The femininity of Avebury is interesting. I think a lot of us think of many of the problems of today as being male. War, a lot of the politics, the aggressiveness in politics, these are male characteristics, or at least we define them as male. We're looking for something different. Many of us think, okay, female is soft, round. The Marlborough Downs, the Avebury landscape is rounded, it's curved.
People are concerned with goddesses in Avebury because they're concerned with an expression of woman's right to spirituality. Women are uppermost, fertility is uppermost, joy is uppermost, life is uppermost. It's a counter-religion and all the more effective for that.
My feelings are that the Mother Goddess was central to Avebury. I come here when I need to be embraced by her arms.
Ironically, the women who seek their goddess in Avebury may be celebrating the culture in which male power over women was first consolidated. Archaeological evidence from the Neolithic suggests this was the period when women began to be tied to the home.
There's evidence for population rise. Women are increasingly involved in childbirth, and through the Neolithic period the population of Britain goes up several fold, and they're becoming more tied into a domestic round and domestic grind, and becoming important in terms of their production value to men.
Throughout human history, the development of an agricultural lifestyle has led to a higher birth rate and a more restricted role for women. If there was a marriage of the gods, it's unlikely it was an equal partnership. Yet Terence Meaden proposes that it was the central ceremony of Neolithic belief, not just at Stonehenge, but at Avebury too. Here too, he identifies one stone as the goddess stone, the centre of the ritual circle.
We have here a vulva-like arrangement with possibly a clitoris here, and the fact that it was put here facing this direction is the significant thing. In short, there is this vulva mark here, a very powerful feminine symbol indeed.
Many of the original stones which made up the Avebury Circle have vanished, but a computer model which includes the lost stones reveals a single stone which once towered above the rest. The missing obelisk. For Terence Meaden, this was the phallic stone of the bridegroom.
The most important stone of the stone circle was the goddess stone. At the centre of the circle was a stone which is no longer here. The obelisk is now marked by this concrete pillar, but it used to stand here 18 feet high. At the start of May in every year, the sun, in rising over the hill, cast a vast shadow which went from the obelisk right through to the goddess stone. The stone was therefore enveloped in shade. That was the marriage of the gods.
To test his theory at Avebury, Dr. Meaden reconstructs the lost obelisk in its original position.
It's a bit of a pointed top, you see.
Professor Ronald Hutton of Bristol University, an eminent authority on ancient religions, has agreed to observe the experiment. Dr. Meaden's theory is too narrowly based on sex for most archaeologists to accept, but some of its elements do appeal to Professor Hutton.
There's a lot of mileage to Terence's idea. The idea that phallic symbols are important in the Neolithic is well borne out. The idea of there being something sacred in sex is also found. You put this lot together and it can actually come into one season all right.
The builders are working to a drawing of the obelisk made by the 18th century scholar William Stukely, who measured many of the stones at Avebury.
We're fortunate in having a drawing made by Stukely in July 1723. It shows the obelisk fallen, and we've been able to reconstruct the obelisk on account of this sketch. We're standing, in fact, in just about the same position where Stukely was when he made the drawing.
I think it's terrific. I think it has absolutely nothing to do with what might have or might not have happened 4,000 years ago when the stones were put up. It might do, but we're in an area where we just cannot prove anything. There is no way of testing this hypothesis.
Dr. Meaden's experiment cannot prove the existence of a prehistoric marriage of the gods. But he can demonstrate the effects of a dawn sunrise as our ancestors might have seen it. A 20th century English dawn, misty and cold.
It's now 5:30, 10 minutes to sunrise according to our calculations. We're waiting for the sun. Unfortunately, there's a lot of cloud about. We are rather thinking now the sun won't be seen in the next few minutes.
A Neolithic spring was much warmer than ours, the chance of a spectacular sunrise much greater. Today there remains only one way to defeat the weather. Dr. Meaden sends for a massive 18-kilowatt spotlight to complete his experiment. This was not a midsummer ceremony. Terence Meaden believes that the Avebury marriage of the gods took place around May Day, the traditional time of fertility rites. Using basic geometry and compass readings, and taking into account the astronomical movements of the past 4,000 years, he concludes that for several days in early May, a dawn shadow cast from the phallic obelisk could have reached his goddess stone.
There's plenty of evidence for monuments incorporating seasonal alignments in the British Neolithic. We know that they herded cattle, and if you herd cattle in ancient Europe, you move them up to the summer pastures at the beginning of May, and usually there is a ceremony to bless them with fire. The Irish call it Beltane. So it is a big universal North European festival as soon as history begins. It's quite logical it would have been for those who built Avebury.
Pull it out towards you. One more boy, she's there.
The effect should be just the same. The apparent diameter of the sun is going to cast a shadow in exactly the same way. The positioning is right. The obelisk is standing proud against the skyline there.
So be here with you in an attempt to see something like the effect that that great monolith would have had 4,500 years ago. It's thrilling.
Come on, guys, get it switched on. But they are about to do just that.
Oh, here comes a shadow. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
It's really perfect. The shadow is splendid.
The shadow is brilliant. I'm just worried by the scale. It doesn't so much penetrate the vulva as overwhelm the entire stone and everything else around it. It looks positively illegal. And it's a gigantic phallic object, and really quite a small vulva, and somehow I expected goddess and god to be a bit more in proportion.
To simulate the movement of the rising sun, the tower is moved along tracks. Terence Meaden's goddess stone is engulfed by a gigantic shadow cast by the obelisk.
We have marriage between the god and the goddess.
I think that was seriously impressive. It was very, very, very fine to watch.
What we have learnt from this is the likelihood that the marriage of the gods was arranged to take place in this dramatic way. And being a marriage between gods, it means that there was, therefore, a god and a goddess in order that this should happen. This is an advance in our understanding of the Neolithic.
I think it's added another fascinating possibility. And I think it could be a very visible, a very dramatic symbol of an actual rite. I don't think it's proof, but I think it's something which we should be seeing now properly for the first time, and all credit for you for having seen it first.
Stonehenge was in use for over 1,000 years. 1,000 years of prehistoric human rituals, during which many beliefs and many gods may have come and gone. Professor Hutton warns against seeking a single answer to a complicated question.
The idea of a single goddess being worshipped from the British Isles to the far end of the ancient world doesn't really appeal to me. I find it very hard to believe you have one single deity worshipped in the same way. What I see instead is a host of different local deities, goddesses being immensely important, but a lot more as well.
A sacred place whose meaning shifts with each generation. A mysterious temple whose gods and goddesses have vanished from our sight. Enigmatic and beautiful, Stonehenge guards its secrets.